This week on the Wheelhouse. Last day to lawmake. The heavy lifting is done, but there's still more work to do. For Connecticut Public, I'm Frankie Graziano. This is the Wheelhouse, the show that connects politics to the people. We got your weekly dose of politics in Connecticut and beyond right here. Connecticut lawmakers have a new budget deal. The $28 billion package includes new money for towns, child care, and health care providers. This hour, our state capitol experts will dissect the budget, other business done in Hartford this session, and they'll take us into the future. That's a lot to promise you. Previewing the summer ramp up for votes as we approach a gubernatorial election in November. Here to help us with what's gone down in local politics in 2026 so far is Susan Raff, WFSB News Channel 3's chief political reporter. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning. I'm looking forward to going into the future, wherever that it may be.
For you, it's going to be in the Capitol in a few short minutes. But before we get there, we'll also bring on Ebong Udoma, a reporter from WSHU, senior reporter. You just had your show on this morning, and now you're ready to talk to us here.
Hopefully. Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you as well. Folks, are you satisfied with lawmakers' efforts in 2026? Anything you think they should do on the final day? Hit us up, 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. We start with you, Susan. The new budget, essentially, is this a redo of the second year of the biennium budget? Like a budget adjustment or something?
That's exactly what it is. Connecticut lawmakers already passed a 2-year budget, and this is an adjustment. So in the second year, they look and see, like, what kind of money, the revenues, and it's a big, big year for cities and towns in education. Superintendents, mayors have had a very loud voice this session because they've been very concerned about education costs and possibly raising property taxes. So $270 million in that adjustment will go to cities and towns. It's the first time they've had an actual increase in 13 years.
Not flat funded any longer, I would imagine.
No.
That's
especially for education. The education funding has gone up.
And where does that come from, Ebong?
The money comes from the Pequot fund.
And what's the Pequot fund? Is that slot machine pulls?
It's so complicated.
That's slot machine money.
No, it's so complicated because $100 million comes from this Pequot grant, and the rest, I believe, comes from surplus and budgeting. But it's interesting because it has really nothing to do with the tribes or the casinos. It has to do with the mechanism, I'm told, on how grants are put together. Is that correct?
Now, what I don't understand is that they were getting about 50 million. About 57 million before. And now it's gone up to 100 million. And how they got there, I'm still trying to figure out.
Well, it might be one of those things that we just don't know the answer. But I think cities and towns want the money regardless of where it comes from.
Why do municipalities need more money?
They need a lot more money. I mean, education really is very expensive, whether it's transportation, whether they want to hire more teachers. Classroom sizes are very big right now. So, and the only mechanism cities and towns have to address education rising costs are raising property taxes. But here's what's interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to lower property taxes. So, people in many of these towns may be surprised by that. It may mean that they're not going to raise them as much, or they're not going to have to make as many cuts in education. So it really depends on the dynamics of each city and town.
And this is the year that some folks are starting to see those property tax cuts that came a couple of years ago. They're starting to come to fruition on their bills. State Senator Marty Looney announced on Saturday that he wouldn't run for re-election. He's been a state senator since I was 4 years old in 1993. On his way out, he says his budget tackles some of the funding this budget challenges caused by cuts from the federal government. How so, Susan?
Well, I think, Marty Looney has always been a very strong voice for a lot of social programs. He's been a big voice and supporter for immigrants. If you remember, he passed driver's licenses for immigrants. That made national news. And his feeling was people are going to drive anyway. This way, you give them a license and they pay insurance because that's contingent upon you getting a license. He's had a very strong career. But I think now probably is the time for him to pass the torch to Senator Bob Duff.
And before we get there to talk about some of those national programs and the cuts, just to talk about Looney a little bit there, did you see him as somebody that would work across the aisle, maybe with a Senator Len Fasano or something like that?
In those days, yes. I think there was more of an appetite to work together. I don't see that so much in the current dynamic of the legislature. I think that there's a lot of respect for someone like Martin Looney, who's been around for certainly a long time. But I think as he has slowed down, I think it's time. A lot of people feel he should pass the torch. But 46 years is a long time to serve the people of Connecticut. And no one, if you talk to him, the information that is stored in his brain is really remarkable. He can, just like that, remember things. So,
why the hell anybody would want to continue doing this kind of work when you were up until what time this morning were Republicans and Democrats debating this gun lock mechanism bill?
Well, I was
or the Glock bill there.
I was personally not there, but it is this Glock switch. It is the only. I mean,
Marty would have been around for it.
Yeah, well, he might miss it. I think that anytime the dynamics, obviously, and I've said that word a lot this morning. The Democrats have the majority, and they're probably going to get whatever they want passed. And just to give you an idea of what this gun bill is, it is a Glock-style pistol, and there are these switches, which are illegal. But if you put them on the gun, it turns this pistol into a fully automatic weapon. California has banned them, maybe one other state, and Connecticut wants to do the same. But the issue really with that is that
we already have a bump stock ban here in Connecticut, too.
Right, so and this is future sales. It's not if you own one. But even Democrats will say this technology changes.
And I'm trying to say that they're adapting to it. Yes.
And so if the criminals really want to come up with ways to change the gun, they will. So what do lawmakers do? Every year they're going to come back. And so, there's an argument for it. But this, I believe, is the longest debate they've had in the legislature, and it is over guns.
Gas prices are up, guys. Now over $4.50 a gallon, according to AAA. Ebong, is there any relief in this budget package that we talked about? Anything that can be legislated today, if it hasn't been thus far, to help out Connecticut residents?
I don't think anything's going to be legislated today. But what happened is initially, at the beginning of the session, Governor Ned Lamont promised a tax rebate, a $200 check to everyone in October. Well, that fell by the wayside. However, they were able to reduce the public benefits on the utility bills starting this month. And that, we'll see when our bills come out exactly how much it's going to be reduced. But that was because of a deal they had with Millstone, which has paid off, and they have some money that they can now use to reduce the public benefits. So that's about it as far as energy, trying to reduce the cost of energy. There was talk about getting rid of the gasoline tax. That didn't go anywhere. So that's pretty much it as far as relief from the high energy costs.
I think the money for cities and towns was their way. They talked about that rebate for a while, and they were all talking about, affordability and how much money do you give back. But I think the education funding for cities and towns was their way of doing that. Plus, I believe part of the affordability, they're going to give cities and towns the ability to lower their property their mill rate if they want to, and they'll backfill it. But that's only if cities and towns want to, and it's for 1 year.
I think some of the things I was hearing about that afterwards is that this is the kind of thing you might say when you're running for re-election, the $200 check. Is that true, or is that kind of just
Sure.
something?
I think you almost we almost expected that there had to be something, that there was going to be a feel-good thing for people. You have to do that.
Especially if the check goes out in October.
The only work done to sort of ease the tension on skyrocketing energy costs, is that really it, Ebong, or is there anything else? Or is there at least anything that was talked about? Is there? We're continuing to talk about fossil fuels here in Connecticut.
Senator Fazio, who's running for the GOP ticket to run for governor, has been pushing this whole energy affordability thing, and he's been pushing that we should actually use some of the money to cushion the effects, and that didn't go anywhere. Some of the surplus money he was talking about, that was a way to use some of the surplus money. But that didn't go anywhere. But they talked a lot about it all through the session.
But they did pass a bill on solar, which was a bit controversial. But Representative Jonathan Steinberg, who's actually leaving the General Assembly, this creates incentives for not only homeowners but also businesses to use solar, and creates what they call a solar bank. So you can store that power. But the concern, obviously, people saying, well, if you create incentives, it means for the prices to go up. But Jonathan Steinberg will say that over 20 years, that goes down. So I think they had to do something on energy, and hopefully that will create more clean, sustainable energy.
As we always talk about a power generation issue here in Connecticut, and then you're talking about some ways to address it. We're finally producing power, it sounds like, out of Revolution Wind Project. That's one.
On again, off again, off again, on again.
Due to lawsuits.
Now
but
on.
Sounds like it's now on. But we're getting close to the summer at Bong, and that means that more people are using the AC in their house. And there's going to be a sticker shock, right? So can the public benefits charge and the cut there, can that overcome the sticker shock, I guess? Can that help people overcome it?
I doubt it. However, it will bring down your bill a little bit. But considering how much I paid last summer for my electric bill because it was so hot, and we had to use the air conditioning so much.
How much did you pay for your electric bill? Tell us.
I don't want to remember. I mean, it went up. I've never paid that high for my electric bill. I think it was about
$600 to $800. I think is what a
lot
of it.
Really?
No. It was about $300-400 at the highest.
I'm feeling pretty good right now because I might be one of the few people. I don't have air conditioning.
Look at you. How do you live?
I live in a cold, dark cave.
Do we live? Yeah, good for you. I'm ACing it all year long. And I'd like it to be at 66 if possible. All right, we got to go to homeschooling. The state's acting child advocate, Christina Guillo, says that once a family opts to homeschool a child in Connecticut, there's nothing really tethering that family to the state. And that could be problematic, according to advocates, in the wake of several deaths, including one that spurred the conversation this year, 11-year-old Jacqueline Mimi Torres Garcia. I'm sure something you've talked a lot about, and we've seen reported on the station as well.
Yeah, there have been several cases, and, they're horrible tragedies, and I think lawmakers wanted to do something this year to address homeschooling. They brought it up last year. This is, some would argue, a little bit watered down, but I believe that they had to do something. No, the majority of people who are homeschooling their children are doing it for the right reasons, and there are no problems. But for those kids who are falling through the cracks, it certainly gives people an opportunity to abuse them. Connecticut's the only state in the country that has no laws, nothing when it comes to homeschooling. So you can just take your child out of school and hope for the best. So those cases really prompted lawmakers to do something. And the legislation that came out, and it was, contentious. There were long debates over it. It basically, if you does a background check, if you're on DCF, have an open case, you cannot homeschool. Obviously, if you're on the sex offender or child abuse registry, you cannot homeschool. And it does require an annual registration. So that every year when you take your child out of school, you fill out a form, I'm withdrawing my kid for homeschooling. There are no home visits. That's it. But
you register with the Connecticut Department of Ed, right? Or is it DCF? I think it's Connecticut Department of Ed.
It's the Department of Ed through your school. But Republicans argued, and with good reason, that it cannot solely fall on homeschooling parents, that the Department of Children and Families, and we just recently saw, now they're on the hot seat for a very tragic situation in Middletown,
yes,
where a man threw his baby off of a bridge, even though the mother had pleaded with DCF that they were in a bad situation. So a lot of work has to be done with DCF, and there is legislation this year that passed which requires more training. And they also found that 80% of visits from DCF are virtual, and that was unacceptable to everybody. And so they want to do something about it. But it really is a multi-pronged approach. It cannot just fall on homeschooling parents.
And I should note that they added money for DCF in the budget as well. The thing about it is that for homeschoolers, they felt threatened, and they came out in force to try and so there was some compromise that was done on this bill to get it through. And the fact that you have to basically, once you report, it's like every year you have to, affirmatively say that, you are homeschooling your child, and so that people don't fall through the cracks. And the way they justified that was that every child in public or private school is registered at the beginning of the year. And so they want to keep track of children that way.
We talked a lot about this session thus far, the big ticket items, but what were some other points of debate this session, Ebong, that you want to point to?
Let's start with the ICE restraint bill.
ICE restraint, yes.
I think you took the words right out of my mouth.
Because that got quite a bit of debate, and it got quite testy in the House because of a number of amendments that the Republicans were introducing that kept debate going late into the night. And that was probably the latest that the House met this year, because Speaker Matt Ritter has tried to make sure that they try and get out early so that people don't end up, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, we had a tragedy where a member died in an accident after a late night session. Yeah. And so they've tried to avoid that in the House. But a little bit of controversy there because of a post that one of the Democrats made after that debate that the Republicans didn't care for. But what happened as far as that bill is concerned, now ICE agents and all federal agents will be subject to the same type of regulations as the state and local police, that they have to identify themselves, they can't wear masks. And there was a lot of debate about whether that would be violate federal law. Basically, that would be a clash with federal law. And it's going to be definitely, it will be, there'll be some type of litigation over this, and the Republicans were saying that the state would not prevail.
Right. I think part of the legislation also restricted where ICE and law enforcement can go. No places of worship, hospitals, churches. It no doubt will face legal challenge, and Attorney General Tong made a note saying, bring it on. Connecticut will defend itself. It's already being challenged in several states, including California.
Because at least multiple times last year, the Federal Department of Justice, or the federal government first, and then it was the Department of Justice, had Connecticut as a state and some counties in there as well, listed as sanctuary designations as well. So there is some
federal law, though, supersedes state law in most cases. So it will certainly face a challenge. But is it worth fighting for? Some feel it is.
From Connecticut Public, this is the Wheelhouse. I'm Frankie Graziano. You've been listening to Channel 3 Susan Raff and WSHU senior reporter Ebong Udoma, and you'll hear from them again after the break. We're going to go from the state capitol to the campaign trail, where it gets hot in a hurry with parties nominating candidates for governor in less than 2 weeks. There's more Wheelhouse right after these words. This is the Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. This hour, we're rounding up the latest in state politics on the final day of the 2026 legislative session. With us are Susan Raff, WFSB News Channel 3's chief political reporter, and WSHU senior reporter Ebong Udoma. Any quick thoughts about the session, folks? Give us a call. We're going to be saying goodbye to Ebong and Susan after this segment to talk about initiatives to boost local journalism. Hit us up, 888-720-9677. 888-720-9677. Hey, last year, lawmakers created this endowment to eventually fund child care for every family in Connecticut. But funding the program relies on surplus dollars. Ebong talked about this earlier. There was a different call to maybe use, this came from the GOP, to use some of the surplus dollars for energy costs and things like that. Everybody's always talking about the surplus dollars, ESERT. You get that idea. So this program, a lot of the money for surplus has already been accounted for. Does that mean that this program is in jeopardy?
No.
Where are the sort of political winds blowing on
No,
this?
it doesn't. In fact, there are going to be 1,000 new child care slots very soon. This has been a big priority for Governor Lamont, who felt that if you want to encourage people to work, they need to feel comfortable. And
but
be
it
able
might
to
not
work.
have been earlier in the session?
It wasn't earlier, but there is something there for it. The goal, obviously, they would like to have universal child care. But Connecticut is a leader in this, that they want to provide good quality, affordable child care for people. A bunch of different child care centers applied, and that's going to become a reality here in Connecticut.
Yeah, they're trying to worry about the
They
child care
had
desert.
300 million, I believe, that was able to be put in,
right.
put in this year, which is pretty remarkable that they've been able to put in money into the endowment for 2 years now.
It is, but the reason why I brought that up is because the urgency wasn't always there this session to use that surplus
Well,
dollars
Beth
for
Bai
that.
is gone, so Beth was really such a strong advocate for it, but she did pave the way and left something good in her work.
Tremendous work from
absolutely.
Beth Bai. Were housing measures affected this session? I know we were talking about a no-fault evictions bill, but not a lot of talk on housing, it seemed like this, with an affordability
Well,
crisis.
they did so much last year. How much are they doing?
Although I would say that I got an alert on I had to go to bed early yesterday because of my show this morning, but I saw an alert about housing from the housing, basically people opposed to the housing. Here in Fairfield County, we have people who are very, very against any type of new legislation.
Don't say, Ebong. Is that true, Susan? He might
and
be
I got
lying.
an alert that the House dealt with the housing bill last night, and they didn't want it to get to the Senate. They wanted to get it to the Senate, so they were asking people to call their representatives to make sure that the Senate doesn't take it up today. So we'll see how that goes. But as far as housing is concerned, the heavy lifting was done last year. And the person behind it was the majority leader, Jason Rojas, who pretty much decided not to push too much this time around, and he let it just go.
Is there anything you guys saw that kind of might have been in trouble or jeopardy, or might be something that's not necessarily propped up during an election year? We have elections, statewide elections this year, and then, of course, we have federal elections as well, too, some of them. But anything that sort of fell by the wayside because it might not be popular for somebody running for a position?
Well, I know something that came up yesterday, that the House decided not to deal with the parole bill.
Oh,
and there was a lot of pushback on that from the Republicans.
And Democrats. There were some Democrats.
And Democrats as well, because that's not a very popular thing to run on in an election year.
And the House Speaker didn't think he had enough votes. He said it yesterday. And basically what it would do is early release. So if you were, say, 21 or 22 and you were convicted of murder, they wanted to raise it to 26. So that means that on the back end of your sentence, you would get out early because their view was, you are a lot different at 22 than you are at 52. But here's something that the minority leader, Vinnie Candelora, said. So in the thought that you're not really mature enough and your brain isn't developed until you're 26, but you can smoke pot and we will sell it to you before then. So he made an argument that way, and I had to stop and think about that for a while. But anyway, I don't think people wanted people to get out of prison early. I mean, if you're 25 years old and you've killed somebody, you should probably serve your sentence.
888-720-9677 if you want to talk to us, 888-720-9677. Once the session is over, lawmakers are going on the campaign trail. You got a gubernatorial election in November, elections for statewide office. And U.S. representatives from Connecticut are back up and have to bid for re-election this year. What are you looking forward to, Ebong?
The Republican primary is going to be quite interesting. The convention itself will be interesting because we have a situation where there are three candidates. There's Aaron Stewart, who was the former mayor of New Britain, and he has had some problems that Ryan Fazio has been really taking advantage of right now, because there's been some question about her trying to get a pension, and the tax collector's office, the woman who was the tax collector
was fired.
So there's a lot going on there, and she's getting it from Ryan Fazio as well as from the Democrats. And it's going to be interesting to see how that will play out in the convention. The third candidate, Bessie McCoy, I don't know where she is. I haven't heard much from her, and I don't know how that's going to work out in the convention, but we'll see.
If I ask you the same question, I think you would give me a similar answer. You're excited, I would imagine, for this convention coming up, Susan.
I am. I think we should bring a lot of popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Our friend Joe Zone likes movie theater quality popcorn, but he doesn't like how when you go to the store, they say that they have movie theater popcorn. So are you going to have like movie theater quality popcorn at the convention?
It's going to be interesting, and I think that there's a lot going on, and Ebong, really kind of highlighted that. There's an independent investigation into Aaron Stewart's administration when she was mayor and how there was alleged favoritism on who got tax breaks and who didn't and who got to delay their interest on their payments. There's also a state police investigation as well. So those two investigations are ongoing, will not be completed until who knows, certainly not by the time of the convention. So that's hanging over her head at this time. I think she'll certainly get enough votes to force a primary. I'm not sure now whether she will be the endorsed candidate at the convention.
Certainly, it sounds like some tough times for Aaron Stewart. Follow Susan for more information on that. Hey, there's that race, but then there's also. Go ahead, Ebba.
Yeah, I was going to say on the Democratic side, Lamont has a challenger.
He does have a challenger.
So it's
and some people were saying
that might have some drama on that side.
Sure.
I want to know who his phone list is. I don't know about you, but everyone I know in the state of Connecticut has gotten texts from Josh Elliott, right? It's really an impressive list.
It's Josh Elliott.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of them as well, but
I think,
maybe
what?
Because we're in the news media. But.
I'm glad there's a challenger. I think we can all agree with that, right? I mean, when there's more, it's better. His chances may not be all that great, but let's face it, he's 40 years old. He has plenty of time, and he's gotten his name out there and some of the issues that he feels importantly. So I don't think it's the last time we're going to hear from Josh Elliott.
And it could certainly pull back the governor to talk about more progressive issues. Something like childcare or something like that is
correct.
Is kind of what what I was getting to earlier. But just quickly before we end here, US 1. That's probably something we should talk about before we finish up here. That's something to look forward to this summer. Luke Bronin and Jillian Gilchrist and Ruth Fortune, who was a Hartford attorney, are challenging John Larson. Anything new to report there, guys?
Well, Larson this is a fight of his life. And, he's
the first one ever.
He's tried to bring in all the big guns to help him out, but I don't know. He's got a real stiff challenge this time. And there's the feeling in the Democratic Party right now that it's time for the change of guard, and so we'll see if he'll make it. But Bronin has raised a lot of money.
I think he'll definitely do well enough to force a primary. Bronin has been out there. He does have some name recognition. Jillian Gilchrist, maybe not as much, but again, there's, the next election cycle, and it's not that far away. But it is true, I think, for the first time in a long time, Larson has had to get out there and actually campaign. But he's still hard to beat, even though people would like to see new, younger, fresh ideas.
Hey, where would we be? Where would I be without these two? So grateful for you, Susan Raff, Chief Political Reporter at Channel 3, and Ebong Udoma, WSHU Senior Reporter. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Well, thank you so much, Frankie. Bye, Susan. See you
Bye,
at
Bob.
the convention.
Yeah, you bring the popcorn.
Oh, my God. They got the last day of the session, and the convention's coming up. It's going to be a good summer for these guys. After the break, do you know what today is? Yes, it's Hump Day, but it's also something important for people like me. After the break, we discuss Local Journalism Appreciation Day. Yeah, that's a real thing that lawmakers made a thing. You're listening to The Wheelhouse on Connecticut Public. This is the Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. Today is the last day of the 2026 legislative session. It means it's an important day for local news. But Wednesday, also Local Journalism Appreciation Day. It's a time to recognize the work of reporters and reflect on why local news matters today and always amid national cutbacks. Joining us now to talk more about the local news are the publisher and CEO of the Connecticut Mirror, Bruce Putterman. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Frankie. Nice to be with you.
And Harriet Jones. She's a journalist and audio storyteller, and she used to edit Frankie Graziano's copy as managing editor at Connecticut Public. Hi, Harriet.
Hi, how are you, Frankie?
Good to see a familiar face, and look at you matching me. How about that?
There you go.
That's what friends are for. Hey, I want to start with the big news. There's some big news happening around this building, and everybody's talking about it. The Connecticut Mirror just won a Pulitzer Prize for local reporting. Congratulations.
Thank you. We did, and it's thrilling, it's stunning, and it's not stunning all at the same time.
This is for On the Hook, an expose on the towing industry, as I understand it.
Yes, the towing industry that for 100 years was engaged in unsavory, predatory practices, particularly directed at low-income residents of Connecticut, and it kind of flew under the radar for a long time. And through a series of tips, we were able to do a year's worth of reporting that led to major legislative change, both in 2025 and then again just earlier this week.
You know, we're all going to rub up against Bruce and try to rub up against him right now and the rest of the crew here to try to really share in that success that you guys are having or feel it, because it's really exciting stuff. And it's like you don't win a Pulitzer every day. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. And you all won some nice awards of your own recently. So
we did. We got a lot of SPJs. We got a lot of other awards. But, man, that's a great award that you guys got. I want to make sure you get your due on that. So as we mentioned, in addition to today being the last day of the session, it's also Local Journalism Day in Connecticut. When did Local Journalism Day become a thing in the state legislature, and what role did you play in it, Bruce?
Well, it became a thing a year ago. Representative Kate Farrar approached me at the gubernatorial inaugural ball in 2023, early 2023, and said, what can the legislature do for local journalism? And we talked about a number of different ideas. And since then, she has filed a number of bills to try to generate some small level of public government funding for local journalism. None of them have gotten over the finish line. Some have advanced through one house, but not the other. So last year, we kind of decided, we know that elected officials support the concept of local journalism. Let's just get them to say yes about something related to local journalism. And so it's easy to say yes about a Local Journalism Appreciation Day. And so that's how that came into being. First Wednesday in May.
And that's today, May 6th.
And that's today.
Connecticut Mirror put together a video commemorating Local Journalism Appreciation Day. Featured in the video are lawmakers talking about the importance of local journalism from inside the state capitol building in Hartford. Here are lawmakers Kate Farrar, as you had mentioned earlier, and Stephen Harding on what journalism means to them.
To me, why local journalism matters so much is that it really is the heartbeat of us knowing what's happening in our community, and also it's essential to making sure that we know how to get involved in our community.
I look back at my time as a child growing up in Brookfield and all the local publications that we used to have. It made residents more informed, and it also helped residents feel great. As a little kid, I used to love getting caught being good and having a picture in the Brookfield Journal. Those are the things that we lose as we lose local journalism.
There's not much to the proposal, as you mentioned, in terms of, you just wanted them to get to say yes about something, right? So why did it get pushed through?
Well, I think it's a relatively easy thing to say yes to. And I think people also believed in the importance of local journalism. And as those two clips show, legislators do appreciate local journalism, and we can talk a little bit about.
But the point is that you want. I should have said it this way. But the point is that you're hoping that in the future they'll pass more bills related to supporting.
Ultimately, we hope they pass more bills, and frankly, we want to remind your audience and other audiences that local journalism really does matter. We're living kind of in the midst of a major contraction of journalism overall, particularly local journalism, and particularly journalism that addresses public policy. And so Local Journalism Appreciation Day is an attempt to raise people's consciousness of the importance of local journalism. Because, as you know, Frankie, as local journalism declines, corruption goes up, polarization goes up, misinformation goes up, government waste because of lack of coverage of government goes up. And as journalism declines, voter participation rates go down, and stronger voter participation, civic engagement goes down, understanding of candidates and issues goes down. So that's part of what we want to reinforce for folks to better understand and appreciate local journalism.
Harry, I want to get your take now. Why does local news matter? And what do you think about Bruce's efforts here to try to get Local Journalism Appreciation Day to be a thing here in Connecticut?
I think it's a wonderful first step to, have legislatures say, yes, local journalism matters. That's great. And what we're hoping for, as Bruce was outlining, is that they actually start to put some dollars behind it in the future. We have a few other bills that we had hoped that they would push through. There's an organization called Rebuild Local News that's doing this work around the country, and they have some initiatives which we're hoping that Connecticut will start to take part in. One is for employment tax credits for organizations that employ new reporters, government advertising spend with local media, so that if government's advertising, some of that money stays in the state, tax breaks for small businesses that advertise with local media, and also journalism fellowships. That was one that we really had hoped would get through this session, and that would have created 12 fellowships for early career, reporters who are just coming out of their journalism education, get them into local newsrooms, support them with public dollars, and get them out there and reporting in our communities. And we're very hopeful that some of these measures may come back in subsequent sessions.
Before we talk about that and the future here and some of the bills that you could push next year, tell us about the Connecticut Student Journalism Collaborative. Connecticut Student Journalism Collaborative. What is this, Harriet, and what work do you do there?
Sure, and it is a mouthful, absolutely. So a couple of years ago, Frankie, you and I both are adjuncts at UConn,
yes,
so we've been involved in journalism education for a while. A couple of years ago, several faculty from different journalism education programs in public universities all around the state were brought together around the table, literally brought together around the table in the offices of the CT Mirror. And we were challenged by a group called the Center for Community News. They're out of the University of Vermont. We were challenged to think, what could it look like if we were going to build a strong, diverse workforce pipeline for journalism in Connecticut? And so we've been working on that project for the last couple of years, and it's, we've seen some really good success. So what we do is we essentially try to get students published professionally before they finish their degree, so that once they get onto the job market, once they're looking for those internships and fellowships and first jobs, they have that strong resume with clips, as we call them in the journalism industry. They have those bylines that they've been able to publish professionally. So we brought together, we have a central website. It's ctcommunitynews.substack.com. We bring together all the best work of student journalists from around the state, publish it on our website, and beyond that, we also offer it up to all the different professional outlets in Connecticut. So CT Public is a tremendous supporter, has published many of our students' pieces. WSHU, CT Mirror has also published a couple of our pieces. CT News Junkie is a huge supporter. CT Examiner, the Hartford Courant, CT Latino News. All of these professional outlets have republished our students' work, and that allows our students both to kind of work to professional standards. It's more than just getting a class grade. It's actually getting, a professional byline. It also allows them then to take that forward into their careers. And it gives the editors in these newsrooms some visibility into the journalism education and who are the strong students coming up that they should be looking at when they have, internships and jobs coming up. So it is, building that connective tissue between, we have great journalism education, we have great newsrooms. Let's build the kind of connective tissue between the two.
Connecticut Public is a partner in the Connecticut Student Journalism Collaborative. You may see the student stories actually published at ctpublic.org. Hey, what schools participate? Give me some more details here. And what kind of stories do they write? Are there like beats? What do we got?
Sure. So we really are open to any program that wants to participate with us. But our core schools are UConn, Southern, Central, CT State, Community College. We have their Manchester campus and their Tunxis campus. Both collaborate with us. Sacred Heart, Quinnipiac. We're just about to start publishing students from the University of Hartford. So we really have tried to cast a wide net. And we don't necessarily have beats. We allow students to offer up any work that they think rises to be, professionally published. But we do have some projects that we've implemented. So we had a great grant from the Solutions Journalism Network this academic year, where we've been doing a deep dive on campus mental health and looking at that through a solutions lens. What are the solutions that are being put forward on campuses to the mental health crisis? We've done that as a project. We just sourced some interns for NPTC Connecticut, nice, who are going to be helping them to cover the midterm elections from a young voter's perspective. We've launched a podcast in collaboration with CT Examiner. We're doing vertical video now. And our students were mentioning awards and, many congratulations to Bruce and the team on their Pulitzer. Yeah. Our students are coming up behind them. We just won awards in 6 different categories in the CTSPJ professional contest that was just announced, including a first place win in the data reporting category.
You testified in front of lawmakers a session about the fellowships bill. As I understand it, why did you do this?
Well, I really believe in it. I think that what we're doing for students who are in their maybe junior or senior year is very important, but the fellowships bill would have taken that next step. So where do these students go once they've graduated? And there aren't enough opportunities in the state, and we're trying to generate more. There are lots of newsrooms who would love to employ new journalists coming freshly out of school, but maybe don't have the resources. So that fellowship position is super, super important. So I felt very strongly about it. I will tell you, as a lifelong journalist, it's slightly uncomfortable to go and advocate at the Capitol because obviously, we're used to just covering the advocates and covering the legislators. So it was slightly weird to go and testify, but I did feel it's very important. And I do think it speaks to this new moment for journalism in that we have to start collaborating. We have to start advocating for ourselves because we can't see local journalism continue to crumble.
I'm interested to get your take on that, too, because you've had to testify as well.
Well, I've testified on all of the bills that we've filed over the last 4 years. On the fellowships bill in particular, yes to everything Harriet just said. I'll just note that I am asked by people all of the time, are young people going into journalism? And we hire 12 interns a year at the Connecticut Mirror, 4 in the spring semester, 4 in the summer semester, 4 in the fall semester. We have to turn people away. People are interested in learning the skills that journalism require. So writing skills, research skills, and whether people go into journalism or not with those skills, they can be applied in lots of other fields. So very supportive of the fellowship bill. It seemed like a relatively inexpensive way to also generate some pipeline of talented young journalists. The idea was a modest $10,000 per fellow for 12
fellows. 12 fellows, yeah.
Right. And, in other states, California has funded 40 fellows. Washington State supports 16 full-time fellows. That costs a lot more than $10,000 per fellow. New Mexico funds 9 fellows and 11 interns. So there is precedent in other states for supporting this kind of a fellowship idea or
Guys,
concept.
the fellowship bill didn't pass or hasn't made it at least yet.
So it passed out of the higher ed committee.
Yeah.
It didn't make it into the budget this year.
You were talking about ad dollars and the tax credits as well. Both of those didn't make it either, right?
Correct. Well, there was an ad reallocation, carve-out bill that we filed in 23, 24, and 25. It passed the House in the first 2 years, didn't get called by the Senate. It didn't pass either chamber last year. We decided not to refile that this year. There was a different bill that, frankly, from our perspective, wasn't an optimal bill, and that was to give small businesses tax credits for advertising they would spend in local in local newsrooms. That's great for small businesses, and we are a small business. I applaud supporting small businesses, but that bill in particular wasn't really going to make an appreciable difference for some of the smaller.
We only have about 30 seconds, so I want to make sure I get this. This is stuff that you guys are going to push next session. You're going to hope that they go beyond just doing Local Journalism Appreciation Day.
Correct. We'll probably push all of those bills again, except for this small business advertising tax credit bill.
Harriet, quick word from you in the last 20 seconds. Why is it important for lawmakers to get behind these local journalism bills?
Because without local journalism, no one knows what they're doing, right? Nobody can really participate fully in their democracy without information. So information is really key for both legislatures and citizens, and we need to support it.
Thank you so much, Harriet, for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
We appreciate you too, Frankie. Thank you.
Journalist and director of the Connecticut Student Journalism Collaborative, and Bruce Putterman, Pulitzer Prize-winning Bruce Putterman of the Connecticut Mirror.
Well, leader of team that was Pulitzer Prize-winning, but thank you.
Congratulations. Today's show produced by Chloe Wynn. Thank you to Patrick Scahill for your help, and Tess Terrible, and Dylan Reyes and the rest of the crew. This is the Wheelhouse. Thank you so much for listening.